And what we do is we enable customers who are shopping online to split their purchases into installments. And by doing that, we are making life more affordable for a lot of people who would like to make purchases but actually may not have the full capacity to do so. I have here with me Akash Dongre, Sathvik Vishwanathan, and Vikram Tiwathia. We thought that we should focus today on the next wave of users who are new to internet, right? And how are those people going to come online? What are the challenges that they are facing in order to move towards the internet? And how can we design the ecosystem and the apps to enable that journey, right? So, Akash, why don't you tell us about the work that you're doing at Indus iOS and how that can actually lead to sort of a new generation of users coming online?
Hi. So, first of all, I would like to just tell you about what INDUS is. If you've not heard about us, we are India's second largest mobile operating system. We are a completely regional mobile operating system which is designed for Indian market. We currently 7.6% of market share in terms of shipment. More than 8 million consumers using our product. Uh, Available across 70 devices. But essentially, what the reason why we created in this OS is, when we looked at the Indian market, we realized that India as a country is very different, with respect to a lot of other urban economies. Uh, you know, English is actually understood by only 10 to 12% consumers. Rest 90% consumers feel that it's not their primary language. If you look at the digital penetration within the country, only 12% of people have ever used a PC. People who are coming online right now are coming online on mobile. So when you look at a new consumer who is coming online for the first time, uh, he's coming online onto a smartphone. He has no experience of how internet works. He doesn't know what apps mean. For him, it's a completely new ecosystem. Plus, all of that is also not in his own language. So we said we have to actually create a complete ecosystem for this consumer who is coming online, and for that we create a simplified regional experience where we help him to navigate and discover content and services on his device. Plus we have also created a lot of solutions which help him do more on his device. So I think one of the problems which we have to solve for the next set of consumer is to create solutions in people's language and use and basically create solution for new set of consumers in the with the user experience which they have not which they find it easy to use. We also feel a lot of newer technologies like text to speech, speech to text, translation, transliteration. These are some of the ways through which you can actually reach out to the end consumer.
Thanks, Akash. So, Sathvik, you obviously are in an area that is actually extremely, ahead of its times in a way, which is basically a Bitcoin trading platform in India. So, why don't you tell us your thoughts on how Bitcoins and the Bitcoin trading platform can enable new, technologies and new apps for this, the segment that is now going to come online, right?
Sure. Am I audible? Yeah.
Yeah.
To talk about UNOCOIN, it's a Bitcoin trading platform in India, and we also provide merchant gateway services and also a POS app for the merchants to start accepting Bitcoin as a mode of payment in a physical stores. So what exactly is Bitcoin, right? So it's just a digital currency that exists online. And it works on a peer-to-peer technology so that there is no central agency or a entity in between to control the flow of the actual information, in fact, which actually holds the required value within it. So if you just compare like how exactly the mobile banking works today, right? So when you hit the button, all that is going from your mobile phone to the bank is just the information. It is not the real money by itself. And on the other side, they decode that particular information to make sure you are the one who are authorizing the transaction, and they just execute that particular transaction. And it is as simple as that. And what exactly Bitcoin is bringing to the table on top of that is this just make it without the bank, right? So it is similar kind of transactions, but without the bank, and it because there is no central entity in between, it just opens up the opportunity to the rest of the world as well. So irrespective of whether I'm sending Bitcoin to just Priya, or it could be like someone in US, it is just the same. It is as simple as sending an email. So you just hit the button and it just goes to the other side. So but when we see about the technology itself, right, so as of now, we essentially use credit cards as a mode of payment. I mean, most of the times. But we all know that credit card is not the most safe way of doing the transactions on the internet, because the information that you submit to a website is actually sufficient for any kind of intruder to actually take away your money, right? So it is like we call it as a pull transaction. So you give the credentials and you expect the merchant to exactly take how much money the invoice is for. But when it comes to a transaction in Bitcoin, we call it as a push transaction, where you exactly send how much money you want to send, and only that will be the access for the merchant to just take it. Right. So this is how it's quite changing. So nowadays we keep hearing of how insecure the internet has become. So internet is no more becoming like a private space. It is just a personal space, right? So you never know what information that belongs to you exists elsewhere, and it is getting scary, day by day. So because of all these things coming together, I believe like if it is a financial transactions where you are required to do the payment, and the other side it's required that you have to accept the payment, especially when it comes to online. Bitcoin is the way to go. And when it comes to how simplified you can do the entire technology, right? So Bitcoin is in existence since like 9-10 years already. But on the other side, if you see, like, Bitcoin technology itself is quite complicated, and I don't think I'll be able to explain how Bitcoin works to my father. It's there's so many elements that they have never heard of. If I say peer to peer, or if I say decentralized, if I say open source, so these things do not make much sense to a common man. So now
Cool.
it comes back to how much simplified, I mean, how much simplicity you can give to the application, so that by just giving them access to an app which is as simple as sending a SMS. So how quickly they can do the transaction, and still they know that they are as a part of the Bitcoin ecosystem. So that's where I think we come into picture as well. So we have the apps which is like really sleek and simple, less confusions, and making it more accessible for a common man who haven't really done much on the internet or internet banking, I think.
Awesome. Thank you. Next, I would like to bring on the fold Vikram. So, as we discussed, how do we get the next sort of 200 or 300 million of the population who already have mobile phones online, right? So, in India, internet is basically mobile internet. And what are some of the challenges that the ecosystem is facing currently in order to power the apps, that can actually empower the common man?
Thank you, Priya. And at the outset, thank you to GMASA for inviting us over. So the good thing is, every time I come to many of these gatherings, I'm, now graying a lot, and I see only black-haired people and young folks who are, actually empowering the rest of the country, right? And if you see the session, empowering, I think we should knock off the E, like Priya is saying. It's no longer E, it is all in the mobile phone, right?
Yes.
So now in the M mobile, as she alluded to, the thing to see is many of you are app developers. So what is the scale of the people who are empowered with which kind of device on which they will consume the services offered on an app, right? So I'll try and dwell on India, but you can, whatever apps you are developing, I'm sure would not be restricted to India, but would be of international, kind of services. So today we have about 350 million smartphones, means internet access. And the rest of the 900 odd million people who are on the mobile are feature phones. And they would still continue to be there for the next at least 5 years, right? And then you have to see that how is the network growing? So what I had mentioned to the team here is, today we have about 15 lakh base stations. Base station is what the mobile connects to, okay? Out of the 15 lakh base stations, 50% are 2G and 50% are 3G, 4G. And since July of last year till this July, we've added around 3 lakh new base stations. And the 80% of these are 4G. So now the reason why I'm mentioning these numbers is, when you are out there developing an app, so what segment or addressable customers are you going to be able to reach out to? So if 80% of the new people are on a 4G thing, so the thing with the 4G is the cost of the device, okay? And one of the things I want to highlight is, India is a dual SIM in the smartphone, is a very predominant, kind of a market phenomena. Now, in the dual SIM, what we are seeing at COAI is, when you put the two SIMs, only one SIM works on a data connection. So normally most devices is the first SIM slot, or whichever SIM slot you configure to, will work on a 3G, 4G access. And the second one will be on a 2G access, right? So again, from an app point of view, because it would be, toggling between the SIM 1 and SIM 2, which you use. So that's something you can keep in mind. And the other thing, of course, would be data costs and all, which are falling significantly. The other point I think I'll highlight, and we'll be happy to take on more questions actually, because what we do is all our members are the telcos, so Airtel, Idea, Vodafone, Reliance, Jio, Telenor, and Aircel. And we've got, let's say all the equipment vendors, that Ericsson, Huawei, Google, Facebook, and all are the other associate members. And what we are currently working with the government is on the next, let's say, national telecom policy. So the existing policy is an NTP, National Telecom Policy of 2012. And we are working on what it will be like 2017, going up to 2022. And, the advent of 5G and how it will roll out. But I'll leave it at that, and happy to take on more things, and especially the KYC aspect. Okay.
Yeah. So thanks, Vikram. Thanks for that. So let's explore this point around, what do you mean by empowering apps, right? So what are the apps, or what are the kind of focus areas that can actually empower the general population? And this is in line with what the Digital India or Make in India sort of Startup India initiatives are trying to do. So, we discussed that some of the areas to explore might be, let's say, healthcare, e-governance, or financial services. But as Akash rightly pointed out, when, the consumers are new to internet, or, most of the people, even including us, we probably spend most of our time browsing, actually. So if you think about, what are apps helping people do, it's either they are discovering new content, so they're browsing, or they're reading, or they're watching, videos, or they are communicating using WhatsApp, or they could be using for transacting, either e-commerce or financial transactions, right? So let's try and explore the first point, which is, content, which you had alluded to. So what are some of the challenges that, content apps could face, especially in reaching out to the new to internet segment, and how can we sort of solve for that?
Yeah, so I think one of the first challenges which all mobile developers, sitting here, would have actually faced is to reach out to an end consumer, to actually generate that install. And what we've seen is based on our data, one of the biggest challenge with the consumer set, the new consumer set who's coming up with internet, coming to internet, has come to internet recently or has shifted from a feature phone to smartphone, is that, he's not able to discover all the applications. And for the early smartphone consumers, that is even a bigger challenge because most app developers actually assume that Google Play Store or some of the established channels to reach out to the consumer, like search, works for the new consumer. Unfortunately, if you actually look at the data, you realize that most consumers do not even have email address. When they sign up, when they actually buy a smartphone, most of the time retailers actually put some, email address just to start the phone. Most people are not even able to use default app store of the device, which is why it becomes extremely difficult for this consumer, to actually search applications through, through the Play Store. The other challenge is search as the way we use. For us, we know that, to find out any information, we just go and find it on, Google or Bing if some people use it. But most users do not know that they can actually search, which is why I think you might have seen the biggest search engine in the world is actually doing advertisements in India. The reason is, the consumer actually doesn't know, that they can search. One of the things to solve this is to actually, work with partners who ensure that the solution is available across, different app stores. Like for example, within this OS, we have our own app store called App Bazaar. App Bazaar doesn't require user to sign up through email address. It doesn't require any kind of registration. When the user comes on App Bazaar, it's completely regional, so the user, even if he doesn't know English, can actually start browsing the application. It's been simplified. It doesn't have a lot of content, it is actually personalized and designed for that consumer. Uh, the other major challenge, which I feel, we will have to solve to speed up the overall, internet usage, is to very closely work on the user interface. Lot of users, as Vikram mentioned, majority of users are actually feature phone users right now. And when these people are, moved to smartphone, that is when they will be connecting to internet. They will need a user experience which they can learn easily. The modern user experience, which works for top 100 million, might not work for these new set of consumers. Uh,
Yeah, cool. Thank you. So we're running out of time. So Vikram, why don't we discuss, the angle around, first we discuss the content, challenges. What about when it comes to transactions and you mentioned eKYC? What are some of the challenges there and how can we resolve that? Although, a lot of strides have been made with eKYC in the last, I'd say 1 year, definitely. So what are you seeing in that space?
Thanks, Priya. So, the good news is that the Supreme Court actually ordered, what happened was that the Department of Telecom, it was around July last year, ordered that going forward, you could buy a new SIM connection just with the Aadhaar, right? You didn't need multiple POI, POA documents. So lots of new connections which were being acquired were with eKYC, which was linked to Aadhaar. But then post this order of the Supreme Court, by February of next year, all the existing connections have to be mobile number. In fact, all your mobile numbers. In fact, I'm taking this opportunity to convey to you that you would require to link your mobile number with a visit to the, your, let's say, telecom store and link it with a fingerprint to your existing number. So, and in the next few months, all the telcos are rolling out POS devices where, when you go to a store of Airtel or a Voda or Idea or Jio, you'll have to, put in your fingerprint. So, what it actually implies is that the government is actually going full steam ahead to implement the JAM thing. That's the Jandhan, Aadhaar, and the mobile linkage. So what will essentially happen is it will, in terms of facilitating transactions, because ultimately when you are offering an app, the service of the app relates to culminating in a transaction happening. And an important part of the transaction to happen is the KYC part. So that is something which many of you folks in the audience would find it good, that in your services, the KYC portion will have automatically been sorted out.
Yeah.
And thereafter, you can develop further on that.
Yeah. And just to add, I think the next frontier will be, new mobile phones or new technology that enables your, biometric and your iris authentication from the device itself, right? And that I think is coming hopefully soon.
I think, just to add on to Jandan and, overall JAM initiative, INDUS is actually the first and only OS in the country right now to have integrated Aadhaar as well as UPI as part of the OS offering, which means that when the user actually buys and starts a phone, he will be actually able to authenticate himself on the phone. And once he does that, he can go ahead and use all the government services, like UPI, all the e-governance services, direct debit to bank accounts. All of those services can now start working for the consumers just by, linking their phone with the Aadhaar.
Awesome, cool. So we have a very little time left, and I think we should open the floor to some questions. So if you have any questions on this topic, please let us know.
No question, maybe. Okay, there's one. So, sorry to, there's one question. What, before you answer the question, what I thought I would let you all know is, sometime back the DOT launched a portal called tarangsanchar.gov.in. On this portal, you can see all the telecom sites, what operator and what technology is available in that area. So if you're going to offer some services in a particular area, you can go and see whether it is covered by 2G, 3G, 4G, and which are the operators out there.
Very interesting.
Hello, my name is Abhijit. So regarding the point made by Akash, so I had a question for you. So I'd heard about Indus OS pretty long back, maybe like a year or 2 years ago, but I'm not sure, I've not yet seen in people's hand. I don't know what's the point. You have a great idea. It could roll out everywhere, in every places. It could benefit the whole population of maybe 1 billion. And another thing I had is, I heard recently, I'm not sure, it might be a rumor or something, Reliance Jio is going to launch mobile phones for 500 rupees on August with 4G VoLTE support. So if Indus could support on these mobile phones, don't you think it could fire up the whole digital empowering thing?
Yeah, thanks. So, in terms of, as I said, we are a 2-year-old company, have more than 8 million consumers right now. So if you look at the overall mobile users, pointing out couple of users will be difficult, but 8 million is a big number. We work with 6 different handset companies right now. We'll be soon expanding to a lot of other handset companies. Some of them are international companies. So we'll be soon be available on more devices. We are also in the process of launching the third version of the product, which addresses a larger consumer base. So even a modern smartphone user would be able to actually use the device to its full potential using the next version of the OS. On the Reliance point, I think what the way we thought, and I think Vikram will add to this, the conversion from feature phone to smartphone, the way we assumed it to speed up, unfortunately hasn't happened. But I think in the coming years, with Geo and with Vikram's team putting a lot of effort in ensuring that the network is strengthened. We will see cheaper devices with better connectivity, and Reliance is taking a step. A lot of other handset companies are also doing it, and we as a company trying to create a platform for these new set of smartphones will continue to support them, especially on with respect to language. The government has already created some guidelines around it. We will be supporting all of those onto our devices.
Folks, what I'd like to emphasize is something which kinds of gets missed out. You go to the market and you buy a phone, right? All the phone companies advertise a phone, selfie camera, dual camera, right? Nobody rarely, if ever, talks about the radio features of a phone over which your app is going to work. The app is going to work on the efficiency of the radio and the processor, which is kind of, not played up as much. And if those of you who follow 3GPP specs, the recent spec which was launched was category 16, if I'm not wrong, Cat 6. The one Cat 14 was narrowband IoT, okay? Now, when you're developing your apps, also see what segment of devices it's going to be consumed on. Now, आप 4,000 रुपए का फोन खरीदते हो, 40 का खरीदते हो, 80,000 का खरीदते हो, भाई कुछ तो फर्क होगा. That rarely tends to get discussed. Everybody thinks my smartphone is going to create magic, where it's not really true, right? So be a little discerning when you're designing your apps as to what kind of data throughputs that it's going to use up. Because the other thing, you'll end up with a sudden bill shock, right? And whether it will work over the air, or will it work more efficiently over the Wi-Fi, right? So these are some of the aspects you need to take into account while you're designing your app, and what services and transactions will happen based on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think there was one more question.
There
if not-
was.
But we've run out of time.
There was, but we have time.
Okay, fine. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for being a really patient crowd, and thanks to the panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Priya, for that well-moderated session, and thank you, Akash, Sathvik, and Vikram. I'd like to request Venkatesh from GMASA to please come on stage and present a memento to all the speakers. I'd like to welcome on stage our next speaker, Mahesh Verma from Champ Cash. He's going to be talking about removing unemployment through technology and digital India. Please welcome Mahesh Verma.